Welcome to the Daily Vent. My name is Nicole Orchard, and this is my husband.
Hello,
Intro-
I'm Jordan
okay, this is Jordan.
Green.
Good job. Okay, so I purchased a second mic. I tried to be cheap and buy a used one. It came in, it didn't work. So I have to return it and now wait for another mic to come. So that is why we only have one mic and it doesn't sound that great. This sounds so bad. We are going to talk about some of the most outrageous things that medical staff have said to medical parents, along with sharing some of the weirdest, wildest, most inappropriate things that doctors and nurses, RTs have said to us as well throughout their journey in our 16-month hospital stay with our son, John, who was a 23-weeker. So Jordan, do you want me to start reading you some of the crazy ones, or do you want to tell some of our wild ones? I love when Jordan tells them from his perspective. Um, what do you want to do?
Either way, I don't care.
My husband. This is my husband. I love you. Okay. Let's go ahead and tell the story of the boogeyman. We like to call him the boogeyman. He actually has a real name. We're not going to say it. He is a eye doctor. So if you have a micropreemie or preemie, you are probably familiar with ROP, which is retinal of prematurity, do you know how to explain that pretty well?
I've always just explained it as the retina becoming detached from the eye due to just being born premature, all the oxygen. It's bad.
That was beautiful. Basically, John had ROP. He had to have Avastin injections at one time, and then he had to have laser eye surgery, which is pretty common. How old was he when he had the laser eye surgery? Like 5 months old? 4 months old? He had just been extubated for a hot minute.
Yeah, because we hadn't quite made it to the NICU yet.
Okay. So anyway, this doctor is a very interesting man. Obviously, he's good at his job because he saved John's vision and knows what he's doing when it comes to ROP, but his bedside manner is pretty awful. He is the type who will, how do you say, smile at you while delivering the most awful news. Explain the boogeyman. Or do you want to just go ahead and tell?
I first called him the boogeyman to his face because he would always scare the shit out of you with the most outrageous things. He would tell you all these horrible possibilities about what could happen, and whether it's his eyes, his cerebral palsy, anything like that. When you'd ask him questions, he'd say, "Oh, I don't know. You'd have to talk to a specialist about that." Like, why are you telling me all this crazy stuff? I get they're doctors, but like, you just told me that my son's going to be blind because of this, and that, and I say, okay, well, why is that? Like, what's going on with that? Oh, I don't know. You're gonna have to talk to somebody else. So that was super annoying. I don't know if that's common practice with all doctors, but I did not appreciate it.
Yes, exactly. So one day he came in the room and sent us, what day was it? I think it was when he was telling us, like, we were nervous because we were having to see if he needed to be intubated again for like emergent eye surgery, laser eye surgery. And so he came in and he likes to do this thing where he like looks in the eyes and says nothing until he's done just to fuck with you when he could clearly tell you what's going on. It's like his favorite trademark to do. And he started looking and he said, "Oh, good, good news. Or it doesn't look like I need to do surgery today, but mom and dad," because we're standing in the car, goes, "Mom and dad, does he have any brain bleeds? You remember this?" And we're like, "No," like bragging about him. Like, he didn't have any brain bleeds, which is like so rare for a 23-weeker. Like, he's the best. He was the brain bleeds, like so proud of our boy, right? Just be crushed. He goes, "Well, I'm seeing large optic cups," or optic nerves. He said nerves then.
Yeah, it was a large hole in the optic nerve.
Okay.
Which is, he described it as a cup.
Yes. So he goes, "I'm seeing very large optic cups right now, which most likely means severe vision loss." Is that how he said it?
Yeah, they're also super common, like with bad brain bleeds leads to this, which leads to cerebral palsy and vision loss.
So it's common with like a PVL, which is a type of like white matter brain bleed in the front of the head, which John had not had any brain bleed and didn't have any signs of PVL yet. And he still has no PVL. We've done MRIs and everything, and there is no sign of PVL. But he basically looked at us and said, "Oh, he looks like he would have a PVL, and they'll probably need to do an MRI before you go home or something." And we're looking at him and we're like, and I had researched PVL before, so I knew what it meant. It's scary. There's different levels of it, obviously. And so I'm like standing there and I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, what do you mean significant vision loss? I'm like, and he goes with a smile, like more than glasses, like something that glasses cannot fix where you really can't see anything. And we're like, what? Like, he just was standing there with a smile. And I was just like, well, how do you know more? Like, can you look and tell us? He goes, I am not a neuro-ophthalmologist. I just know ROP. That's all I know. But I'm just letting you know that he has large optic cups. And that usually means that he has some sort of PVL or brain thing going on, and he's probably not going to see. And Jordan and I were like looking at each other. That was such a sad day. We went to Chick-fil-A that night on our way home and sat in the back booth of Chick-fil-A, and we both cried while eating our Chick-fil-A sandwiches because it was like the second he was telling us our whole son's future, like what, like flashed before our eyes, like standing outside on a fall day and throwing a football with my son. Like, I don't even know, like all these weird things just like went through my whole head in like that 30 seconds of him telling us this. And Jordan says the same thing happened for him. And we were so panicked for like weeks. And finally we talked to Dr. Yule, and he was like,
I think it was him.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know what that man's talking about. Like, I've never heard of those two things linked before. Like, don't let it bother you, which made us feel better. But every time after that, when Jordan saw this man, I think I like thought you were gonna like kill him.
Yeah, he made me pretty upset because John has his vision's fine now. I mean, granted, he had to have some stuff done, and he might have limited peripheral vision, but he tried to tell us before. I think the very last time we saw it,
Yeah,
he was looking in his eyes with they stick this middle thing down in the eyes to open them up, and shines a light in there, and you already have your pupils dilated, so you can't see shit like that. And he tells us, oh, he doesn't track at all. He doesn't see. I don't know. His vision's not going to be good.
yeah,
It's like, you motherfucker. It's fine.
yeah. He called us, right, and
I think it was on the phone.
Yeah, he goes, everything's great. I'm gonna clear you from the ROP clinic. Everything's good, but mom and dad, again, he always said that. Mom and dad, just letting you know, he doesn't track at all. He doesn't track at all. So there's gonna be some significant vision issues. This fucking man puts, like he said, medieval things. If you've never seen it, they like go like this in the eyeballs. They numb the eyes, dilate the eyes, and he's in his face. Of course, he's not gonna fucking look at you. Like, he's in the room for what, 30 seconds?
Yeah, it's super quick, but
Like,
and I always try to give somebody in that position with like a little bit of grace because they are a doctor. They're at least educated in their field, but I don't know. He definitely didn't know what John's vision would be in the future because he sees fine.
yeah, I mean, here I am. I joined like a PVL moms group. I'm like researching all of these things. I mean, this man is just like the boogeyman. And if you talk to other NICU parents that in our NICU, they're like the same thing. Like, some people won't even deal with him. He knows what he's doing, but oh my God, like, why do you say that? Why do you say that to parents? Like, why? I totally respect and understand. I really do understand doctors telling you worst case scenario, right? That has been our life, is we appreciate it. We want them to tell us worst case scenarios. We know God can do miracles. We know God does all the things and all that stuff, right? And I want to know the reality of stuff, but there is a way of telling you. And we had an ophthalmologist come and check on John after his trach surgery because he was on so many drugs that like his eyes were like reading a teleprompter. And so we were worried then. And then the guy has followed up with John. Basically, he's told us John is a blue-eyed, white male, fair skin, and he's a boy, right? I said male, sorry. And basically, they're known to have larger cups. That's like a thing. And it's also genetics. If your parents have larger cups, then genetically you're most likely going to have larger cups. Well, guess who has large cups for a female? Me. Cups are supposed to be what? 0.2?
I don't know the sizing.
The average is like 0.2 and I have 0.65. John's are like 0.8. So they are large. But Jordan hasn't gotten his checked yet. But I wouldn't be shocked if Jordan's are because he's what? Blue-eyed, blonde, white male. So I'm sure they're big too. But this man was just such a dick, and I'm so glad I never have to deal with him again. I pray we never have to deal with him again.
Still thankful for what he did for John.
Yes, I'm sorry. Boogeyman, we're very thankful for you. If you ever watched this, we're grateful for you. We're very happy, grateful parents. But
take a class on how to talk to parents.
Yes, your bedside manner could be fixed. Jordan and I always say that a lot of these doctors, not all of them, can I say this? I'm going to say it. We think a lot of them are on the spectrum just to be as smart as they are. But I really think that a lot of them might be on some sort of spectrum, or like their social skills might just be a little bit off.
In the part of the brain where social skills are, they just have a little less room for social skills, a little more room for being an expert in their field. So they just...
Which is fine because they need to have more of their brain filled with what? Information to save these kids and to be a doctor. That's fine. If that's what it takes for you to be a great doctor and save people and you have bad bedside skills, that's great. But don't get me wrong. I would say what? It's 50-50. We've had so many amazing doctors that are like so personable. So like the PICU doctors, oh my God, I love all of them. They're all personable. I could shoot the shit with all of them. They all would give it to us straight. They would all be like friends with, like, I love all of them. The NICU doctors, I'd say like 50-50, right?
Yeah, generously would be 50-50.
There are a few. If any of the NICU doctors ever listen to this, there are the few and they know that we love them and they're great. Yeah. But then there's some that, you know, it's hard to say though, because they did save our kid. And, you know, I really don't have anything bad to say about it. I just think that there's some that were much easier to form a bond with. What other stories of weird things that people told us? What can you think of?
Well, I mean, Dr. Bad News Doctor.
Yeah, Dr. Bad News Doctor. Well, oh, okay. So when John was 2 months old, he was super, super sick and was not getting better. He was on a round of steroids and basically it was a last ditch effort and it wasn't helping. We were on day 4, babe?
Yeah, something like that.
We were on day 4 of steroids, which is typically when they would kick in if they hadn't already by then. And he was on the jet ventilator, maxed out 100% oxygen, highest settings on the jet vent. And there was nothing more that basically we could do. And I wanted we had just fired the doctor that we had gotten on that day because she called us and basically said, like, I'm going to have palliative care to come by your room. She was bitch. I'm going to have palliative care by your room. There's like nothing else that we can do. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And she wouldn't even talk to me about things. I had made a whole list of options because I was on a microcreamy page. And I was like, what about this? What about this? She's like, nuts. There's too far gone. Like nothing more you can do. And she wasn't even nice about it. Like our kid was dying and she was just a total bitch. So I fired her. And then happened to be the doctor that was on call was Dr. Bad News Doctor. Of course. And he comes in and Jordan was sleeping and I was holding John because that was the first time I had held John in weeks, right? And I had said we had one of our favorite nurses that day and our favorite RT. And they made it happen because no one else was comfortable with us holding him on the jet ventilator. And they made it happen. And I'm holding John for like the first time in so long. And Dr. Bad News Doctor comes in. And I said to him, like, I want to get a second opinion on Nationwide. If you've never heard from Nationwide, they're like BPD specialists and the chronic lung issues for these babies. And sometimes you can call them. Obviously, he wasn't stable enough to transfer, but you can call them and they can give you different recommendations for vent settings based on what your kid is looking like. if your kid is dying, like, you want every last ditch effort possible, because my son had fought so fucking hard for 2 months just to be told that, he wasn't going to make it. And I had to ask him multiple times if he would call. And he was just like, they're not going to tell us anything different. And I'm like, okay, but what does it hurt to call? And the nurse kept saying, should we wake up her husband for this talk? And he's like, no, no, no. Like, I just want to keep talking to her and see exactly what her game, like what she wants or something. It was so weird. So Jordan's in the corner sleeping. And I keep asking this man, please, can you just call? Like, I want a second opinion. Just call. And he's like, so you're wanting me to call? Is that what you're wanting? Yes, that's what I want. Please call. And I looked at him, and the nurse goes, I think we should wake up her husband. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, no, no, just let him sleep. I looked at him and I said, this is not fair. It's not fair. And I was crying. And he said, what's not fair? And I'm like, that my son is dying. Like, it's not fair that he fought so hard just to not make it. Like, that's not fair that I put him through this, because this was the same doctor that told us either choice is a loving choice and, trying to save him, blah, blah, blah. So it just sucked. And I said, well, what does this look like? Like, what's going on? Like, what's going to happen? And he basically said, it looks like he has hours to days left. And I'm like holding John and I'm just crying. I'm screaming, crying, freaking out. And I finally look at the nurse. I'm not going to say her name. I finally look at the nurse, and Dr. Batney's doctor leaves. And I was like, can you wake up my husband? Like, so finally I wake up, Jordan wakes up, and I look at him and I'm like, John's dying. Like, call our friends, call our family. And within like 45 minutes, everybody was there, and we got somebody there, and we baptized him that night. And by the grace of God, he turned around the next day. We got a new doctor on who became one of our favorite doctors. And he basically, Dr. Yule. Yeah, he basically came on the next morning, and he was just like, listen, I have an idea. Let's try this. Let's try that. And when I read off my list of things to him, he wasn't just like, no. He was like, unfortunately, that won't work because of this. Like, he would explain it to us why these things wouldn't work. And then he was like, I don't think we're there yet for other things too, because he felt more confident, and he wasn't going to give up. And so that was amazing to have this new doctor come on, and he really gave John a chance. And John shocked us all, per usual. And no one had ever seen that. I really think that God and just he is a miracle, and then us holding him really changed it. We held him for one day, 12 hours straight. And
I think it was longer. I think it was closer to 14, 15 hours straight.
Yeah.
And I think it was within 24 or 48 hours, something like that. He went from 100% oxygen support to down to 48.
Yeah.
And we have a 5-day difference of his lung x-rays that were just a 180 from almost completely collapsed lungs to something like you could actually tell that they were lungs in the x-ray and the next one. They didn't look great, but they were a million times better than they were when they told us he was going to live. And because we refused to give up on him.
Yeah. No one had ever seen anything like that before. And they still say it to this day, that like someone as sick as him to turn around. He is such a fighter. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. I'll have a whole episode on that fucking day. That was Father's Day weekend. Jordan's first Father's Day was super fun. Super fun. Okay, so I'm going to read you some of these things.
Was from other parents?
Yeah. So there's the thing called wimpy white boy syndrome, which is it's a real thing apparently. And some parents would get offended when they would say it. I didn't really care because I knew it like wasn't anything personal, but the statistics should.
Yeah, because it was based on numbers.
Yeah.
Black females did better statistically in the NICU due to prematurity or whatever than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And white boys statistically did the worst.
Yeah.
So that's why they called it wimpy white boy syndrome. Is it a little messed up? Maybe. I don't know. But it's true.
Yeah, I'm not a very sensitive. I guess I can be sensitive, but that didn't bother me because he is white and he's a boy, and he obviously wasn't wimpy.
Right.
So I didn't take it personally, but statistically, like right before I gave birth, the doctor literally said to us, are you having a girl? And I said, I don't know. Well, if you have a girl, she'll have 60% better odds of surviving. 20 minutes later, Jordan goes, it's a boy. And I said, he's gonna die. So statistically, girls do better, and statistically, Black girls do phenomenal. We would have like little micro preemies born next to John, and they would be like we'd find out that it was a girl, and then we'd find out like a little Black girl, and Jordan would be like, she'll be home in 2 months. Like, she'll be home in 3 months. Yeah. Gone. They were always home so fast.
And yeah, most of them did really well in the NICU, where they'd leave on like room air, not trached, anything like that. So it was cool to see.
It was really cool. But I loved it.
Yeah, it also kind of sucked to, well, it is true that white boys do worst.
Yeah. I try to think, we didn't meet any other little white. Well, yeah, I mean, it was really cool though. When we had other micro preemies that were born after John and they got to go home before John, it was reassuring though. It was sad because our son was still there, but in a way it was so reassuring when we got to see other people go home, because it was like, that'll be us next. We'll get there. If they can do it, then John can do it. And it was super reassuring when that would happen. A nurse practitioner, when my daughter was in the NICU, would desat and apnea anytime she was crying at 6 weeks old. The nurse practitioner said, you just need to make sure she doesn't cry and this won't happen.
Brilliant.
Wow. They went to medical school for that. One of our nurses was like 32 weeks pregnant, and another nurse asked if she made a birth plan. And her only comment was, yeah, not to end up like them, and pointing at our room.
Fired.
Who the fuck says that? Like,
you don't say that. You shouldn't say that in general, but you definitely not where somebody could hear.
Is she responded back and said, yeah, me too. Like, who wants to end up as a, oh my gosh, she had a micro preemie. Like, who does that? All right. This one, Jordan's going to get really pissed at this one, because I will preface this with, if you're one of our favorite RTs, you know who you are, and we love our favorite RTs, but we have had some RTs in the past that drive us crazy. That I don't know what it is, but some of them are just, how would you explain them? Like power hungry, no bedside manner.
Oh, a lot of them didn't have bedside manner, which seems to be a common theme in hospitals where they're dealing with babies.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they took having no filter to a different degree, because like you're dealing with parents in a very traumatic area. So, but yeah, the power thing, some of them,
they would tell us all the time.
We're sticklers for rules, and I get it. I like to say I'm a professional rule follower, and I enforce the rules as a profession. But when it's like something dumb that like a parent is doing, like we got in trouble for like moving something like 4 inches to open up
the door,
to open up John's incubator, and they had to come and have a talk with us.
And we had been there 4 months at this point. 4 months.
So stuff like that. Or like when John was still needed like the blanket over his incubator, and like you'd open it to like look at your son, like, oh no, that needs to stay closed. Like, motherfucker, I'm trying to see my son.
Yeah. There were some nurses that were that way, but I would say majority of them were RTs that just didn't have any type of bedside manner, and they were like super power hungry. I'm prefacing this again. It's not all RTs, but this was our experience. Okay. So they're ready? After being with my daughter night and day for about 7 months, I had a new RT come in and tell me no after I boosted Aubrey's oxygen before I suctioned her. And I'll also say she had permission to do this. She'd been there 7 months. I ignored it, started her breathing treatment, so she needed to be suctioned again, and had the RT literally slap my hand away and told me to get away from my daughter. I have never in my life caused such a huge scene after that. I kept telling the guy to leave, that he needed to stop touching my daughter and get the fuck out. It took him 15 minutes to leave our room. Want to talk about going to every single higher up? Because I did. Even the night nurses were coming in saying the girl's mom is an RN. The mom was an RN. And does all of her care and all of her meds. He didn't care.
So the mom of the girl in the NICU was an RN.
Yeah, and she had been there 7 months already, and basically had been doing all of her cares. So it's like how we were super involved in the PICU, and had been told that she could do this and run her nevs and suction her and everything else, and the guy slapped her hand away.
I'm gonna press charges.
I know. I have to reach out to her and ask her if she did, because you probably could.
Yeah, it's battery. I don't know what state they're in, but
Florida, I was in Gainesville as she ends.
it's simple battery.
Yeah, that was her daughter was the one who was on ECMO for like 200 and
Yeah, I'd have been in a fist fight.
30 something days.
If someone would have done that to you or me.
A neurologist came in and told me she wishes late-term abortions were legal in cases like mine, while my living, breathing 6-month-old baby was right there in the room with us.
Yeah. No. It almost makes me wonder.
Blood is boiling.
It almost makes you wonder if they're like some people enjoy just being mean. I think there are some people out there like that. Not everybody, obviously. I think there's more good people than bad. But I think in some cases you end up in such a morbid profession sometimes, like being a NICU doctor. You see some pretty bad stuff sometimes. You just end up enjoying saying fucked up shit.
Yeah, I mean, there always has to be a level of like you have it, and a lot of like the PICU nurses that we've talked to, like the level of just like a really fucked up sense of humor to like get through things, right? It's the same, like you have to be able to like laugh about fucked up shit, make jokes, like inappropriate jokes, but you do those in private, like away from the parents and stuff. But once you get to the point where you can't like separate those things and you're just like completely always just fucked, I think it's time to leave that industry. Would you agree?
Yeah, like there have been times in my job where I'm like, you would talk to your, like you deal with, like one example, you deal with some like badass kid who, has no discipline growing up and is now just a troublemaker, always getting arrested, breaking in a car, stuff like that. And like to each other, like that kid was not his ass beat or spanked or disciplined at all as a kid. Like he probably wouldn't end up like this. You don't tell the parent that because that's not going to do any good.
Yeah.
Except for piss them off.
Yeah, and get you written up.
Yeah, and get in trouble. Like you're not supposed to talk to people like that. You might think it, but you don't say it to that person.
Yeah. Yeah, I think once you get too comfortable with saying those types of things out loud to parents is when it's time for you to like take a step back, because you have to know where that line is.
I don't think kids should have their ass beat. First, just putting that out there.
Jordan's just letting you know that he will never abuse John. My OB told me after my water broke at 19 weeks, there was a 0% chance of survival because miracles happen, but they don't happen often. And then he tried to schedule me for a DNC the next day.
It's DNC.
An abortion.
Huh.
That's nice. I did have one doctor in the PICU tell me that miracles happen, but that there are certain things that just there are things that are just not possible. And if there was miracles for everything, then he wouldn't have a job. And I did have a doctor say it to me, but we were just having a casual conversation. And I did.
No, I remember he said miracles happen to everybody. He wouldn't have a job.
Yeah.
I remember.
And this was when there was a really, really sad case next to our room. And I think he was kind of preferencing it. I keep saying preferencing. And I think he was somewhat referring to that because in the PICU, you kind of hear and see everything. And I think he was just kind of referring to that because it was something where in certain situations when you're brain dead, there is really nothing you can do. And that's kind of what he was relating it to. It didn't really upset me because in a way, I think that might be how he has to cope and handle the job. Don't you think?
Yeah.
When you say like, you're a PICU doctor, you see kids die all the time in like traumatic ways, just super like random ways. And I think that they sometimes, like he was just talking to us like a friend and basically just said, if miracles happen to everybody, I wouldn't have a job. It's the same thing for Jordan. If no one committed any crimes, he wouldn't have a job, right?
Yeah. I'd love for there to be no crime.
It'd be great. Although we do need a paycheck. When I was pregnant with my maternal fetal medicine doctor said, why would I have a C-section if my baby wasn't going to survive anyways?
What was the backstory to that? Like,
I don't know.
was she? That's still not a cool thing to say.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's just stupid. Like what? Because I don't know the backstories on that, but like I had a C-section and my baby was most likely not going to survive. So who says that? Like nobody wants to have a C-section. Jesus. There's a new nurse, a traveler, and she took off all of her baby's probes and everything for her bath. And then she took off her oxygen. And so the mom started to get concerned and said, how do you know if she can't breathe? Like you don't have anything like her sats on the thing and her high flow is off or whatever. She returned and told me verbatim, if she goes blue, I'll just start to bag her. She said, I immediately ran to the front desk and asked for another nurse. I would have lost it.
yeah, this just doesn't make any sense.
No.
It's like going scuba diving without a tank and saying, I'll come up when I need air. But no, you're underwater. You need air.
It's so stupid. There's one from a travel nurse. I called to check in on my son. She said, it's been a bad day. He just stares at me when I walk around the room. She replies back, he's only 1 year old. What do you want him to do?
Yeah, that's...
He's probably staring at you like, hey, bitch, come play with me. Like, pay attention to me. I'm laying in a hospital bed. I was checking with my maternal fetal medicine doctor if it was safe to vacation on my planned baby mood or if it was too risky because of my daughter's IUGR, so she had growth restriction, when I was 22 weeks. The scheduler told me I might as well try to be happy while I could because my daughter most likely wasn't going to make it when she was delivered. She goes, I delivered at 28 weeks and have a happy, healthy, tricked 8-month-old currently, which is amazing. People suck.
I don't understand. There's so many people that just go straight to they probably won't make it. And I understand that, probability of having, micro preemies surviving is not as high as you'd want it to be, but like just there's a fine line between giving somebody the truth about their situation and just delivering it in a mean way. Like I've had to deliver horrible news at work before, and like death notifications, for example, those suck. I hate doing those. I've had to do a bunch. You don't just knock on the door and be like, hey, your son's dead. Like you gotta build some kind of rapport. Right? I mean, it's not like you're there for a couple hours and then you break the news. Like, but you gotta have some grace to it.
Yeah. This girl's older. She said the most obscene medical thing that's ever happened. My mom being accused of Munchausen by proxy syndrome in the hospital after I just had heart surgery and CPS was called in. We were separated and a whole investigation was open and I was in their custody for a week. Fuck. That one's bad. A plastic surgeon told my husband and I he would only do surgery on our daughter if we put a gun to his head. We, at the time, were trying to avoid a trach, and the neonatologist had asked about nasal trumpets, and that was the plastic surgeon's response.
Appropriate.
That was on Johns Hopkins.
Of course it was.
Johns Hopkins. We love Dr. Smithers, but interesting hospital. Oh, this one's so funny. My son had a fever, and the nurse panicked and put ice packs all over him, calling me, not even my fiance, he was at the Ronald McDonald House right there, to come over and check on him. The nurse told me that he was going to die if he didn't get his temp down. I asked what it was, and he proceeded to say 100 degrees. I said, you're joking with the ice packs, right? Nope. Called my fiance. He went over there and literally told the nurse to leave. Asked for Tylenol and turned his fan on. He was fine, by the way. They had 2 blankets on him and the room was set to 80 degrees when it's always set to 70 usually. You don't tell someone that their kid is going to die because they have a 100-degree fever. That nurse should be fired. Apparently that was in an ICU. That is wild.
I would lose it.
Can you imagine getting a call? And she was, I think, out of town, and so her fiance was right there at the Ronald McDonald House and still called her. A nurse, Nikki nurse, told me my daughter was so cute for a preemie because most of the other preemies look like wet potatoes.
That's so mean.
I mean, let's be honest. Sometimes that's the little micro preemies, like they look like Dawn looked like Stewie from Family Guy for a while.
Oh.
They're not proportional. I think they're cute and adorable, but they look a little interesting. And my son included. But a wet potato?
Again, it's one of those things you say behind closed doors if you're going to say it, not to a parent. Even if that parent does have a cute kid.
When she was about a month old, another nurse asked if I was staying the night. I said yes, I stay every night. She asked if I liked to help with her cares. I said yes, when I'm not pumping. I told her I didn't like to throw off my daughter's routine, and if I was not available, it was fine with me if her cares were done with me. She responded, well, I was under the impression that if parents stayed the night, they actually wanted to help. 2 weeks post-discharge from a 283 days in the NICU, the neurologist walked in, so they were at a neurology follow-up appointment. The neurologist walked in without saying as much as a hello, said, her head is so big. She needs a shunt. Her head is so big. I'll let you have 2 weeks to bring her back. Her head is so big. Mind you, she had been on my daughter's case for a very long time, had ample time to suggest a shunt. 2 weeks post-discharge, and you want me to bring her in for brain surgery and readmit her to the hospital because her head is big? Yeah, no, I'll need more to go on than that. Proceeded to dismiss all of my questions and just kept saying that her head just looks so big. She goes, duh, lady, we can tell she has a big head. We went for another follow-up, then quickly asked for a second opinion. Turns out her head was fine and she didn't need a shunt. Okay, this is, I think, the last one. One of the last ones. This one's going to get you. So this lady drove an hour and 40 minutes to visit her son at the NICU every day. She called the NICU on the way to check in. On the way, the NICU receptionist says that my son had been discharged. And I said, what the fuck? How and by whom? Are you sure? And she says, yes. Then I told her that she has 5 minutes to get me or to figure out where my baby is. She called the manager, and the manager says that the baby has been moved from the alligator hallway to the yellow hallway, which is good. That means he's getting ready to be discharged and getting better.
The requirements for receptionists aren't very high.
Who says that? Your son, tells someone that your son has been discharged.
I think what she was trying to say was approved to be discharged.
No, but they still weren't even close. It was just like if we were to move to the second floor or the third floor. You're just moving to a better room. But she's like, yeah, I'm positive your kid got discharged. I would call 911. Those are just some of the things. There was a lot more. I got so many. A lot of them were really similar, which is just so sad. But those, I think, were the worst ones. I probably got over 200 messages from people.
Wow. Should be said that we do really love our medical staff that we had and everybody at John's hospital. And this was just a ranting episode.
Yeah, I will always say I will never try to put down nurses and doctors and all of the staff at the hospital. They are amazing. But in any type of profession, you're always going to have bad apples, right? Any profession.
And I wouldn't say necessarily they're bad apples. Like the guy I like to call Dr. Bad News Doctor, a brilliant guy, I'm sure. And
he's great. He just always had to tell us bad news.
Yeah.
Whereas the boogeyman is a dick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't really have anything bad to say about Dr. Bad News Doctor. I just think that Dr. Bad News Doctor just always got the shittiest straw and had to come in our room and tell us the shittiest things. And I think that anytime you have that type of, we would see him in the hallway and I would want to shit my pants.
Yeah.
But that's not his fault, I guess. Whereas Dr. Bad News Doctor would be like, your kid is dying. Ha 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 ha.
He would laugh.
He would. You don't remember him just smiling so hard when he would tell us things?
I don't remember him smiling.
Oh my God. He was like that person that would tell you the worst news, but with a full smile on his face. How do you not remember?
Well, I was asleep.
No, not Dr. Bad News Doctor.
You just said Dr. Bad News Doctor.
Oh, sorry, Boogeyman.
Oh.
Boogeyman. Sorry, Boogeyman. Dr. Bad News Doctor didn't smile. Boogeyman smiled. If Dr. Bad News Doctor, we saw him laugh or smile, I'd be like, whoa, what's going on? He was very stoic. Right? That was a big word for me.
Well, no. Yeah, he was emotionless, for sure.
Apparently, he has an MD as well in palliative care.
Yeah, you've said that.
It's just...
He got that from Phoenix University online.
No shame to the people in Phoenix University. That was a good one. Anything else you have to say? I feel like I thought you were going to be a little bit more excited. I think if we have two mics, it'll be better to just like have a conversation.
Yeah, I thought I did fine.
I thought you did great, but I just thought that you would be like, I guess I talk a lot. Do you want to do an episode about dads, like being a dad of like a medically complex parent?
Yeah, and I don't think your audience is going to be full of dads listening, but
okay, like, but like maybe like from like a husband's perspective or like a dad perspective, even for like us moms.
Sure.
Jordan Ream, ladies and gentlemen. You want to sign off? Do you want to sign off?
What's your sign off?
I don't really have one, so let's practice some. Called the Daily Vent, a medical mom podcast. So
thanks for tuning in to the Daily Vent.
All right, you gotta put your face like right up here and then
Let's go lightning.
Signing off today will be Jordan Ream. Here we go, Jordan.
This one goes out to all the big meaty bitches. Thank you for listening to the Daily Vent, a medical moms podcast. Let's go lightning.
All right. Oh my God, that was so bad.